The morning sun cast long shadows across the makeshift firing range in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Maria Vasquez adjusted her grip on what the other operators mockingly called her toy gun, a compact M401 carbine with a shortened barrel that looked almost miniature compared to the long-range rifles carried by her male counterparts. The snickers and sideways glances from the Navy SEAL team had become as routine as her morning coffee, but today felt different. Today, intelligence had confirmed the location of Khalil Ahmad Nazir, a high-value target who had been ghost-like in his ability to evade capture for over 18 months. "Hey, Vasquez," called out Petty Officer First Class Jake Morrison, a towering figure whose presence commanded attention wherever he went. "You sure that pea shooter is going to do the job when we need it to count?" The question drew chuckles from the assembled team, men who had earned their Tridents through some of the most grueling training in the world. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were the elite of the elite, operators who had seen action in every major conflict zone over the past decade. Maria didn't respond immediately. She had learned early in her career that action spoke louder than words, especially in a world where being a female special operations soldier meant constantly proving herself worthy of standing alongside legends. Instead, she methodically checked her equipment, her movements precise and deliberate. Every piece of gear had been carefully selected based on years of experience in urban combat environments where mobility often meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The compact rifle that drew so much ridicule wasn't just a personal preference. It was a tactical choice born from hard-earned battlefield wisdom. Maria had spent 3 tours in Iraq's most dangerous cities, navigating narrow alleyways and multi-story buildings where a full-length rifle became more liability than asset. She had watched talented operators struggle with longer weapons in close-quarters combat, seen missions compromised because someone's barrel caught on a doorframe or couldn't pivot quickly enough in tight spaces. "Listen up, everyone," announced Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun, the mission briefing officer whose reputation for meticulous planning had earned respect throughout Special Operations Command. The casual banter immediately ceased as the team gathered around a detailed topographical map spread across a folding table. "Intelligence indicates Nazir will be moving through the Helmand River Valley tomorrow night, traveling with a small convoy to what we believe is a high-level meeting with Taliban leadership." The briefing revealed the complexity of their target. Khalil Ahmad Nazir wasn't just another insurgent leader. He was a master tactician who had orchestrated some of the most sophisticated attacks against coalition forces. His network stretched across 3 provinces, coordinating weapons smuggling, bomb-making operations, and recruitment drives that had cost dozens of American and Allied lives. Previous attempts to capture or eliminate him had failed spectacularly, often resulting in ambushes that suggested someone with extensive military training was advising Taliban forces. "The terrain is challenging," Chun continued, pointing to elevation markers on the map. "Rocky outcroppings provide natural cover, but they also create blind spots. The target's convoy will be moving fast through a narrow valley pass. We'll have maybe a 10-minute window before they reach the village, where they'll disappear into a network of underground tunnels we can't penetrate." Maria studied the topographical details intently, her mind already calculating angles, distances, and potential complications. The mission parameters were becoming clear. This wouldn't be a long-range engagement, where traditional sniper tactics would dominate. Instead, it would require close-quarters precision in challenging terrain where maneuverability could determine everything. "Vasquez, you'll be our designated marksman," Chun announced, a decision that raised eyebrows among several team members who had expected the assignment to go to someone with a longer-range weapon system. "Your urban combat experience and familiarity with close-quarters engagements make you the logical choice for this particular mission profile." The assignment wasn't lost on Maria. She understood the weight of responsibility that came with being designated as the primary shooter against such a high-value target. More than that, she recognized this as an opportunity to demonstrate that her unconventional weapon choice and tactical approach weren't weaknesses to be tolerated, but strengths that could prove decisive when conventional wisdom fell short. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. As the team dispersed to begin final equipment checks and mission preparation, Maria couldn't help but notice the skeptical glances still being exchanged among some of the SEAL operators. Their doubt wasn't necessarily personal, it was professional. Concern about trusting their lives to someone whose methods differed from established protocols. These men had survived countless operations by adhering to proven techniques and time-tested equipment configurations. The helicopter blades cut through the thin mountain air as the insertion team approached their designated landing zone. Maria sat in focused silence, running through mental rehearsals of the mission parameters, while around her, 8 of the Navy's most elite operators conducted their own pre-mission rituals. Some cleaned weapons that were already spotless, others reviewed satellite imagery on ruggedized tablets, but all maintained the quiet intensity that preceded high-stakes operations. Petty Officer Morrison sat directly across from her, his custom-built sniper rifle secured between his knees. The weapon was a work of art, a precision instrument capable of engaging targets at distances exceeding 1,200 meters. Its scope alone cost more than most soldiers' annual salaries, and Morrison's skill with the system had earned him legendary status within the special operations community. He had over 40 confirmed kills across multiple deployments, including several high-value targets whose elimination had significantly disrupted enemy operations. "No disrespect intended, Vasquez," Morrison said, leaning forward to be heard over the helicopter's engine noise. "But this target isn't some street corner insurgent. Nazir has survived this long because he's smart, paranoid, and surrounded by people who know what they're doing. When the moment comes, there won't be second chances." Maria nodded acknowledgement without taking offense. Morrison's concern was legitimate. The compact rifle's effective range was significantly shorter than traditional sniper systems, requiring her to get much closer to the target area. In special operations, closer usually meant more dangerous, with greater exposure to enemy counterfire and reduced escape options if things went wrong. "I understand your concern," she replied evenly. "But sometimes getting closer is exactly what the mission requires. Nazir has survived long-range attempts precisely because he expects them. He travels with counter-sniper teams, uses electronic jamming equipment, and varies his routes specifically to avoid predictable engagement scenarios." The mission intelligence supported her assessment. Previous attempts to eliminate Nazir had failed because operators had relied on conventional, long-range tactics that the target security teams had learned to anticipate and counter. Nazir's convoy typically included at least 2 technical vehicles equipped with heavy machine guns, plus dismounted security elements trained to identify and suppress sniper positions at extended ranges. Lieutenant Commander Chun's voice crackled through their headsets as the helicopter began its final approach. 2 minutes to insertion. Weather conditions are favorable, clear skies, minimal wind. Local intelligence assets confirmed the target convoy departed their staging area approximately 20 minutes ago, placing them on schedule for the projected intercept window. The landing zone was a barren plateau overlooking the valley where Nazir's convoy would pass. The terrain offered excellent observation positions, but limited cover, a double-edged tactical situation that would provide clear fields of fire, while exposing the team to potential detection and counterattack. Maria had studied the topographical maps extensively, identifying several positions that would allow her to engage the target at ranges between 300 to 400 meters, well within her weapon's optimal performance envelope. As the helicopter touched down, The team moved with practiced efficiency. Within 30 seconds, all personnel and equipment were on the ground, and the aircraft was lifting off to avoid lingering in potentially hostile airspace. The sudden silence that followed the helicopter's departure was almost overwhelming, a reminder of how isolated they were in enemy territory, hours away from potential reinforcement or extraction support. Team leader, Chief Petty Officer Marcus. Webb immediately established a defensive perimeter, while intelligence specialist, Petty Officer Lisa Park, set up communication equipment to maintain contact with higher headquarters. The mission timeline was tight. They had approximately 90 minutes to reach their observation positions and prepare for the convoy's arrival. Movement in 2 minutes, Webb announced quietly. Vasquez, you'll take position Alpha with Morrison as your spotter. Rodriguez and Thompson will establish overwatch on the ridgeline. Everyone else maintains security and provides backup fire support if this goes sideways. The trek to position Alpha required crossing nearly a kilometer of rocky terrain in complete darkness, navigating by night vision and GPS coordinates. Maria moved with quiet confidence, her compact rifle and lighter load allowing her to maintain pace with operators carrying much heavier equipment. This was exactly the kind of situation where her weapon choice provided tactical advantages, less weight, better balance, and improved maneuverability in challenging terrain. Morrison, despite his earlier skepticism, proved to be an excellent spotter. His years of experience identifying targets and calculating environmental factors complemented Maria's shooting skills perfectly. As they settled into their firing position, he began methodically ranging potential target areas and documenting wind conditions that could affect bullet trajectory. Convoy movement confirmed, Park's voice whispered through their radio headsets. 3 vehicles moving at approximately 40 kilometers per hour. Estimated time to target area, 12 minutes. Maria adjusted her position behind a natural rock formation that provided both concealment and a stable shooting platform. Her compact rifle might not have the range of Morrison's precision system, but it offered advantages that would prove crucial in the next few minutes. The shorter barrel and reduced overall length made it easier to maneuver in the confined space behind the rocks, while the weapon's lighter weight reduced fatigue during extended observation periods. Through her scope, the valley appeared peaceful. In the pre-dawn darkness, just another empty stretch of Afghan countryside that had witnessed countless conflicts over centuries of warfare. But intelligence indicated that within minutes, this quiet landscape would become the site of a critical engagement that could significantly impact ongoing operations throughout the region. The distant rumble of diesel engines echoed off the valley walls as Nazir's convoy approached the kill zone. Maria's breathing remained steady and controlled, a technique perfected through thousands of hours of training and real-world application. Through her scope, she could see 3 vehicles moving in tactical formation, a lead truck with mounted machine gun, the target vehicle in the center, and a trailing security element maintaining overwatch responsibilities. Target vehicle confirmed. Morrison whispered into his throat microphone. Dark blue Toyota pickup, matching intelligence photos. I count 6 individuals in the convoy security element, all armed with automatic weapons. The target should be in the center vehicle's passenger compartment. Maria made minute adjustments to her scope settings, compensating for the ambient light conditions and estimated range to target. Her compact rifle's optics weren't as sophisticated as Morrison's precision system, but they were perfectly adequate for the engagement distances they were facing. More importantly, the weapon's handling characteristics had become second nature. Through countless training, repetitions, and combat applications, the convoy's route would take them through a natural choke point, where the valley narrowed between 2 rocky outcroppings. Intelligence analysis had identified this location as offering the best combination of clear fields of fire and limited escape routes. assuming the shooting team could maintain their positions despite inevitable return fire from the convoys. Security elements. Range to target area to 350 meters, Morrison reported quietly. Wind conditions minimal, temperature dropping slightly as sunrise approaches. You'll have maybe a 10-second window when the vehicle slows to navigate the turn. At the choke point, Maria acknowledged with a slight nod, her attention focused entirely on the approaching convoy. Years of combat experience had taught her to manage the physiological responses that accompanied high-stress engagements, elevated heart rate, tunnel vision, and the tendency to hold her breath during critical moments. Proper breathing technique and mental preparation were just as important as marksmanship fundamentals when lives hung in the balance. The lead vehicle entered the choke point exactly as predicted, its driver reducing speed to navigate the narrow passage between rock formations. Maria tracked the movement through her scope, finger resting lightly on the trigger guard while she waited for the target vehicle to follow. Intelligence photos had shown Nazir typically rode in the front passenger seat, positioned where he could maintain situational awareness while remaining protected by vehicle armor and escort elements. Target vehicle approaching the choke point, Morrison continued his running commentary. Speed approximately 20 kilometers per hour and decreasing. You should have your shot in 15 seconds. The blue Toyota pickup moved into Maria's crosshairs, its windshield reflecting the early morning light in ways that partially obscured the passenger compartment. This was exactly the kind of challenging shot that required judgment, experience, and confidence in both equipment and training. A less experienced operator might hesitate, waiting for perfect conditions that might never come. Through her scope, Maria could see the target vehicle's passenger, clearly now a bearded man in traditional Afghan clothing who matched Nazir's description perfectly. He appeared alert and watchful, his head turning constantly as he scanned the surrounding terrain for potential threats. His security training was evident in the way he positioned himself within the vehicle, minimizing exposure while maintaining the ability to direct defensive responses if necessary. "I have positive identification," Maria whispered into her microphone. Target confirmed in the passenger seat of the center vehicle, taking the shot. The moment of truth had arrived. All the skepticism about her weapon choice, all the questions about her capabilities, all the doubt about whether she belonged on this team, everything came down to the next few seconds. Maria's world narrowed to the precise sight picture in her scope, the feel of the trigger beneath her finger, and the rhythm of her controlled breathing. The compact rifle's advantages became immediately apparent as she made final adjustments to her shooting position. The weapon's lighter weight and shorter overall length allowed her to track the moving target more smoothly than would have been possible with a longer, heavier system. The reduced muzzle blast and flash signature would also make it harder for enemy forces to identify her position after the shot. Morrison held his breath as Maria's finger moved from the trigger guard to the trigger itself. Through his spotting scope, he could see the target vehicle beginning to accelerate as it completed the turn through the choke point. The window of opportunity was closing rapidly. Within seconds, the convoy would be moving too fast and at too great a distance for a reliable shot. The sharp crack of Maria's rifle split the morning silence, followed immediately by the distinctive sound of a high-velocity bullet impacting its target. Through his spotting scope, Morrison watched the target vehicle swerve violently as the driver reacted to the sudden emergency. Its passenger compartment now sprayed with blood that was clearly visible even at 350 meters distance. "Target down," Morrison announced over the radio net. "Positive hit on the primary target. Vehicle is stopping. Security elements are dismounting and attempting to locate our position." The convoy's reaction was immediate and professional, exactly what they had expected from a security team trained to deal with sniper attacks. Machine gun fire began raking the hillside as the escort vehicles maneuvered to provide covering. Fire while dismounted personnel attempted to establish the shooter's location. The rock formation that concealed Maria's position deflected most of the incoming rounds, but the volume of fire made it clear that remaining in place was not a viable option. "Time to go," Webb's voice crackled through their headsets. "Extraction point Alpha in 15 minutes. Move, move." The aftermath of Maria's precise shot transformed the peaceful valley into a battlefield within seconds. Enemy machine gun fire traced across the rocky outcroppings where the SEAL team had established their positions. The distinctive sound of AK-47s mixing with the heavier reports of vehicle-mounted weapons. The convoy's security team was responding exactly as their training dictated: suppress the sniper threat while establishing defensive positions to prevent follow-up attacks. Maria rolled away from her shooting position as rifle rounds chipped fragments from the rocks where she had been lying moments before. The compact rifle's lighter weight proved invaluable during this phase of the engagement, allowing her to move quickly between cover positions without the burden of a heavier weapons system. Morrison followed close behind, his precision rifle now seeming cumbersome in the close-quarters maneuvering required to avoid enemy fire. Confirming target elimination, Park's voice crackled through their headsets as she monitored enemy radio. Communications. Intercepted transmissions indicate the primary target is deceased. Convoy security is requesting immediate reinforcement and medical evacuation support. The intelligence specialist's confirmation validated Maria's shot placement, but it also meant their tactical situation was about to become significantly more dangerous. Enemy reinforcements would likely include additional heavy weapons and possibly air support, resources that could pin down the SEAL team long enough for a much larger force to surround their position. "Chief," Webb's voice cut through the radio chatter with crisp authority. "Alpha team, initiate withdrawal to extraction point. Bravo team, establish covering fire and prepare to bound rearward on my command. We've got what we came for. Time to get out of here." The withdrawal began with textbook precision, each team member understanding their role in the complex choreography required to break contact with a determined enemy force. Rodriguez and Thompson maintained suppressive fire from their overwatch position, their automatic weapons keeping enemy heads down while the primary assault team began moving toward the extraction point. Maria's compact rifle continued to prove its worth during the running firefight that followed. While Morrison struggled to maneuver his longer weapon through the rocky terrain, she was able to provide accurate suppressive fire from multiple positions, her weapon's portability allowing her to keep pace with the team's movement while maintaining combat effectiveness. "Incoming vehicles from the south," Thompson reported over the radio net. "Looks like 2 technical trucks with mounted weapons, approximately 3 kilometers out and closing fast." The approaching reinforcements represented a serious escalation in the threat level facing the extraction team. Technical vehicles, typically pickup trucks with machine guns or rocket launchers mounted in their beds, could provide sustained heavy fire support that would make helicopter extraction extremely hazardous. Webb made the tactical decision. That would define the next phase of their mission. Change of plans. "We're not making it to the primary extraction point with those technicals in play. Rodriguez, can you engage them from your current position?" "Negative," came the immediate reply. "Wrong angle and too much terrain masking. We need to get closer or find a better position." This was exactly the kind of situation where Maria's urban combat experience and unconventional tactical approach could make the difference between mission success and catastrophe. While the rest of the team was thinking in terms of long-range engagements and traditional fire and maneuver tactics, she was already calculating how to use the terrain's close-quarters characteristics to their advantage. "I can get close enough to engage the technicals," Maria volunteered over the radio. "That compact profile will let me move through terrain that would stop someone with a longer weapon system." Morrison's voice immediately cut through the tactical net. "Vasquez, those vehicles have crew-served weapons. Getting close enough for your rifle to be effective means getting close enough for them to cut you in half. His concern was tactically sound, engaging vehicle-mounted weapons with a personal rifle was generally considered a desperate measure rather than a preferred tactical solution. But Maria had done exactly this kind of fighting in the urban battlefields of Iraq, where insurgents regularly used technical vehicles to control key intersections and supply routes. Sometimes desperate measures are exactly what the situation requires, she replied calmly. I've engaged technicals before in Fallujah and Ramadi. The key is getting close enough to target the crew rather than trying to damage the vehicle itself. Webb evaluated the tactical options quickly. The approaching reinforcements would reach their position within minutes, and the primary extraction point was already compromised by enemy fire. Alternative extraction locations would require additional helicopter flight time through increasingly hostile airspace. Maria's proposal offered the possibility of neutralizing the technical threat and opening up their original extraction route. Do it, Webb decided. Morrison, you provide overwatch and covering fire. Everyone else, prepare to bound toward the extraction point once Vasquez neutralizes those vehicles. Maria immediately began moving toward a position that would allow her to intercept the approaching technicals. The terrain provided excellent concealment opportunities for someone with her compact weapon system. Narrow passages between rock formations that would have been impassable for operators carrying longer rifles or heavier equipment loads. The sound of diesel engines grew louder as the enemy reinforcements approached the valley floor. Through her scope, Maria could see both vehicles clearly now. Toyota pickups with machine guns mounted in their beds, each crewed by 3 fighters who appeared well-trained and alert to the possibility of ambush. Her position among the rocks provided an elevated firing angle that would allow her to engage the vehicle crews from approximately 200 meters, well within her weapon's optimal performance envelope. More importantly, the angle would let her fire down into the truck beds where the machine gun crews were most vulnerable. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The first technical vehicle entered her engagement zone exactly as she had predicted. Its driver focused on navigating the rough terrain rather than scanning for potential ambush positions. Maria's first shot took the machine gunner cleanly, her compact rifle's report echoing off the valley walls as the crew-served weapon fell silent. The elimination of the first machine gunner sent immediate shockwaves through the enemy reinforcement convoy. The second technical vehicle swerved violently as its driver reacted to the sudden loss of covering fire, while dismounted infantry began spreading out in search patterns designed to locate and suppress the hidden sniper position. Maria had already shifted to a secondary firing position before the sound of her first shot finished echoing through the valley. This was a fundamental principle of urban sniper tactics. Never remain in the same location after engaging targets, especially when facing enemies trained in counter-sniper operations. Her compact rifle's portability made these position changes possible in terrain where operators with longer weapons would have been trapped. The second technical's machine gunner was scanning the hillside frantically, trying to identify the source of the attack that had eliminated his counterpart. His weapon traversed back and forth across the rocky outcroppings, but the multiple potential hiding places made target identification nearly impossible without additional intelligence or spotting support. From her new position, Maria had a clear shot at the second gunner's profile as he leaned forward over his weapon. The range was slightly longer now, approximately 250 meters, but still well within her capabilities. Her second shot was as precise as the first, and suddenly both technical vehicles were without their primary weapon systems. 2 for 2. Morrison's voice carried a note of genuine admiration over the radio net. Those were textbook shots under combat conditions. The praise from Morrison carried special significance. It represented acknowledgement from one of the Navy's most accomplished snipers that Maria's unconventional approach was not only viable, but superior under the specific tactical conditions they were facing. His own precision rifle system, despite its superior range and accuracy potential, would have been nearly useless in the close-quarters maneuvering required to engage the mobile targets. With their heavy weapons neutralized, the technical vehicles became significantly less threatening to helicopter extraction operations. However, the dismounted infantry from both trucks was now actively searching for the sniper position, and their training was evident in the systematic way they were clearing potential hiding spots. "Vasquez, you need to get out of there," Webb's voice carried urgent concern. "I count at least 8 dismounts moving up the hillside toward your position. They're using proper fire and maneuver techniques." Maria was already moving before Webb finished speaking. The enemy infantry was indeed well-trained, advancing in coordinated bounds with covering fire that demonstrated familiarity with counter-sniper tactics. However, their training had prepared them to deal with long-range snipers operating from fixed positions, not close-quarters engagements with highly mobile operators. Her compact rifle allowed her to move through terrain features that would have channeled enemies armed with longer weapons into predictable routes. She slipped between rock formations, using natural camouflage and sound discipline to avoid detection while the search teams passed within meters of her concealed positions. Enemy's systematic search pattern was actually working against them in this terrain. By focusing on likely sniper hides at extended ranges, they were overlooking the close-in positions where Maria's compact weapon system provided optimal effectiveness. Their assumption that the sniper must be operating from long range, a reasonable assumption based on conventional tactics, created blind spots that she could exploit. "Extraction helicopter inbound," Park announced over the radio net. "ETA 4 minutes to primary landing zone. Pilot reports he can provide close air support with door guns if needed." The approaching helicopter represented salvation, but only if the team could reach the extraction point without being pinned down by enemy forces. The dismounted infantry was still searching for Maria's position, while additional vehicles could be heard approaching from multiple directions. The tactical window for successful extraction was narrowing rapidly. Webb made another critical decision that would test the team's training and coordination under extreme stress. All units begin immediate movement to extraction point, bounding overwatch standard intervals. "Vasquez, can you provide rear security during our withdrawal?" This assignment placed Maria in the most dangerous position, responsible for deterring pursuit while the rest of the team moved to safety. It required her to remain in contact with enemy forces longer than anyone else, using her compact weapon system to discourage aggressive pursuit while maintaining the mobility necessary to eventually reach the extraction point herself. "Understood," Maria replied calmly. "I'll keep them honest while you get to the LZ." Her compact rifle's advantages became even more pronounced during this phase of the operation. While providing rear security, she needed to engage targets of opportunity while constantly moving to avoid being pinned down by return fire. The weapon's lightweight and maneuverability allowed her to shoot and move with a speed that kept enemy forces guessing about her location. The enemy infantry was persistent and professional in their pursuit, but they were hampered by uncertainty about exactly what they were facing. The precision of her shots against the technical vehicle crews suggested a highly skilled sniper, but her ability to engage from multiple positions in rapid succession indicated tactical mobility that didn't match their expectations for long range. Specialists dot through her scope. Maria could see the lead pursuer, a bearded fighter, carrying an AK-47, who was moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to combat leadership. His position at the front of the search formation marked him as the probable team leader, making him a high-value target whose elimination could disrupt the entire pursuit effort. Her shot took him center mass at approximately 180 meters. The Compact rifles report, causing the entire search team to immediately seek cover. The psychological impact of losing their leader was immediate and visible. The coordinated advance dissolved into individual survival instincts as each fighter sought the nearest available concealment. "Nice work, Vasquez," Thompson's voice carried genuine respect. "That should buy us the time we need to reach the extraction point." The helicopter's rotor noise was clearly audible now, growing louder as the pilot approached the designated landing zone. Maria began her own withdrawal toward the extraction point, using the terrain features and enemy confusion to mask her movement. Behind her, the pursuit had effectively stalled as the remaining fighters dealt with the shock of losing their leader and the uncertainty of facing an opponent who didn't conform to their tactical expectations. The extraction helicopter appeared over the ridgeline like a mechanical angel, its rotors beating against the thin mountain air as the pilot skillfully navigated toward the designated landing zone. Maria could hear the distinctive sound of the aircraft's approach even as she continued her tactical withdrawal through the rocky terrain, enemy voices growing fainter behind her as the demoralized pursuit team struggled to reorganize after losing their leader. Chief Webb's voice crackled through her headset with renewed urgency. "Vasquez, what's your position? We're at the LZ and the bird is 30 seconds out. You need to move faster if you're going to make this extraction." The distance to the landing zone was approximately 400 meters across challenging terrain that offered both concealment opportunities and potential obstacles for rapid movement. Maria's compact rifle, which had proven so advantageous during the firefight, now demonstrated another crucial benefit. The reduced weight and bulk allowed her to maintain a pace that would have been impossible while carrying the heavier weapons. System. As she bounded between cover positions, Maria could hear the helicopter settling onto the rocky ground, where her teammates were already establishing a defensive perimeter. The pilot would want to minimize his time on the ground in hostile territory. Every second spent stationary increased the risk of enemy rocket or machine gun fire that could destroy the aircraft and strand the entire team. "I'm 2 minutes out," Maria reported breathlessly into her throat microphone. "Tell the pilot to keep his engines running." Behind her, the enemy search team had finally begun to reorganize, their voices carrying clearly across the still morning air as they attempted to coordinate a final push to prevent the Americans from escaping. Maria could hear at least 6 different voices, suggesting that despite the casualties she had inflicted, a significant threat remained active in their pursuit. Morrison's voice cut through the radio chatter with tactical precision. "Vasquez, you've got at least 4 pursuers moving up the draw to your left. They're trying to get ahead of you and cut off your route to the LZ." The warning came just in time. Through gaps in the rocky terrain, Maria could see armed figures attempting to establish an ambush position that would dominate her final approach to the extraction point. Their tactical thinking was sound. Rather than continuing a direct pursuit that had already cost them casualties, they were trying to anticipate her movement and establish a blocking position. Her compact rifle's maneuverability allowed her to quickly adjust her route, using terrain features that would have been inaccessible to someone carrying a longer weapon system. Instead of following the obvious path toward the landing zone, she was able to take a more circuitous route that avoided the developing ambush while maintaining forward progress. The helicopter's crew chief was clearly visible now, positioned at the aircraft's door with a machine gun that could provide covering fire if necessary. His presence represented not just firepower but also the professional competence of aviation crews who regularly risked their lives to extract ground forces from hostile territory. 30 seconds, Webb announced over the radio. "We can see you moving through the rocks. The bird is getting nervous about staying on the ground much longer." Maria pushed herself harder, her years of physical conditioning and combat experience combining to maintain speed, despite the challenging terrain and accumulated fatigue from the extended firefight. Her compact rifle bounced against her back, As she half ran, half climbed through the final obstacles separating her from safety, the sound of a K-47 fire erupted behind her, as the enemy forces realized their ambush had been detected and avoided. Bullets whined off rocks around her position, but the range and angles were poor for accurate shooting. The pursuers were firing more from frustration than tactical necessity, a final attempt to prevent her escape rather than a coordinated engagement with realistic chances of success. "Incoming fire from the south," Morrison reported calmly. "Not particularly accurate, but we should get out of here before they get lucky or bring up heavier weapons." The helicopter pilot's voice joined the radio traffic for the first time, his tone carrying the professional concern of someone whose aircraft was exposed to potential enemy fire. "Ground team, I need everyone aboard in the next 60 seconds. We're starting to take small arms fire from multiple directions." Maria covered the final 100 meters to the landing zone in a sprint that drew on reserves of energy she didn't know she still possessed. The helicopter's rotor wash created a small dust storm that provided additional concealment from enemy observation, while the aircraft's door gunner maintained vigilant overwatch for any threats that might emerge from the surrounding terrain. Webb reached out to help her into the helicopter as she approached the aircraft's door. "Outstanding work out there, Vasquez. That was some of the finest combat shooting I've ever witnessed under field conditions." The praise from the team leader carried special weight. Webb had served in special operations for over 15 years and had witnessed exceptional marksmanship from some of the world's best operators. His acknowledgement represented validation, not just of Maria's shooting skills, but of her tactical judgment and equipment choices. As the helicopter lifted off from the landing zone, Maria looked back toward the valley where Khalil Ahmad Nazir's convoy still sat motionless, its primary target eliminated by precise shots from a weapon that other operators had dismissed as inadequate for serious combat operations. The mission's success had required not just marksmanship skills, but tactical flexibility and the wisdom to choose equipment based on mission requirements rather than conventional expectations. Morrison sat across from her in the helicopter's cargo compartment, his precision rifle secured between his knees. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, speaking directly into her ear to be heard over the engine noise. "That compact rifle of yours isn't a toy gun. It's exactly the right weapon for exactly the right mission." The helicopter's steady vibration and engine noise created a cocoon of relative safety as the extraction aircraft climbed away from the hostile territory where Khalil Ahmad Nazir's reign of terror had finally ended. Maria sat in contemplative silence, her compact rifle resting across her knees while she processed the events of the past several hours. Around her, the other team members were conducting their own post-mission mental reviews, each operator analyzing their performance and identifying lessons learned for future operations. Lieutenant Commander Chun's voice crackled through their headsets as she coordinated with higher headquarters from the operations center back at base. "Confirmed mission success. Primary target eliminated, all personnel accounted for, and extraction completed without friendly casualties. Intelligence teams are already analyzing intercepted communications to identify follow-on targets within Nazir's network." The successful elimination of such a high-value target would have ripple effects throughout the regional insurgency network. Nazir hadn't just been another Taliban commander. He had been a critical node connecting various insurgent groups, facilitating weapons transfers, coordinating complex attacks, and providing tactical expertise that had made enemy operations significantly more effective and deadly. Chief Webb moved through the helicopter's cargo area, conducting individual debriefings with each team member while the events were still fresh in their minds. When he reached Maria, his expression carried a mixture of professional satisfaction and genuine respect that hadn't been present before the mission began. "That was exceptional shooting under extremely challenging conditions," Webb said, settling into the seat beside her. "But more than that, it was exceptional tactical thinking. You recognized that this mission required a different approach than conventional wisdom would suggest, and you had the confidence to stick with your judgment, despite skepticism from the team. Maria nodded acknowledgement while considering the broader implications of what had transpired. The mission's success hadn't just validated her choice of weapons and tactics, it had demonstrated the importance of adapting established procedures to meet specific operational requirements, rather than adhering rigidly to standardized approaches that might not be optimal for every situation. The compact rifle wasn't just about personal preference, she explained. I spent months analyzing the intelligence on Nazir's previous successful escapes. Every attempt to engage him at long range had failed because his security teams were specifically trained to counter traditional sniper tactics. Getting closer was the only way to achieve surprise and ensure a successful engagement. Webb's understanding was evident in his response. That's exactly the kind of tactical analysis that separates good operators from exceptional ones. Anyone can learn to shoot accurately at extended ranges, but recognizing when conventional tactics won't work and developing alternative approaches that requires genuine expertise and professional courage. The conversation was interrupted by Morrison, who had been listening while conducting his own equipment maintenance procedures. I have to admit, Vasquez, watching you work out there was like getting a master class in urban combat tactics. The way you used terrain features that would have been impossible with a longer weapon system. That was something I'd read about but never seen executed at that level. The acknowledgement from Morrison carried particular significance because it represented a fundamental shift in perspective from one of the Navy's most accomplished precision shooters. His willingness to recognize that different tactical situations might require different approaches demonstrated the intellectual flexibility that characterized truly elite operators. Park looked up from her communication equipment with news that would put the mission's success into broader strategic context. Intelligence intercepts are confirming what we hoped for. Nazir's elimination has created immediate chaos within the insurgent command structure. 3 separate cells are already fighting over territorial control, and at least 2 high-value targets have broken cover to attend emergency leadership meetings. The intelligence specialist's report highlighted why eliminating key leaders like Nazir was so strategically important. These individuals weren't just symbolic targets. They were functional components of complex networks, whose removal created operational disruptions that could take months or years for enemy forces to overcome. As the helicopter continued its flight toward base, Maria found herself reflecting on the broader lessons of the day's events. The skepticism she had faced about her weapon choice and tactical approach hadn't been malicious or personally motivated. It had reflected genuine, professional concern from operators whose experience had taught them to rely on proven methods and standardized equipment. However, the rapidly evolving nature of modern warfare meant that enemy forces were constantly adapting their tactics to counter established American advantages. Success required not just technical competence, but the intellectual agility to recognize when new approaches might be necessary and the professional courage to implement them despite institutional resistance. Rodriguez, who had provided critical overwatch during the engagement, joined the discussion with observations that demonstrated how the entire team had learned from the experience. What impressed me most was how your mobility with that compact system allowed you to support the team withdrawal in ways that wouldn't have been possible with a traditional sniper rifle. You were essentially functioning as both precision shooter and mobile assault element. The technical analysis was accurate. Maria's weapon choice had allowed her to fulfill multiple tactical roles during a single operation, providing capabilities that might otherwise have required additional personnel or different mission planning. This flexibility represented exactly the kind of operational advantage that could prove decisive in future engagements. Webb consulted his mission timeline and updated the team on their return schedule. We'll be back at base in 20 minutes. Full debrief starts in 2 hours, followed by after-action analysis and preliminary planning for follow-on operations, targeting Nazir's network associates. This mission is just the beginning of what could be a much larger operation. The prospect of additional missions targeting the broader insurgent network meant that the tactical lessons learned during Nazir's elimination would have immediate practical applications. Maria's demonstration that compact weapon systems could provide decisive advantages under specific conditions would likely influence equipment choices and tactical planning for future operations. The helicopter touched down at forward operating Base Chapman as the sun climbed higher into the Afghan sky, casting long shadows across the sprawling military installation that served as headquarters for special operations throughout the region. Maria gathered her equipment and followed her teammates toward the debriefing facilities, her compact rifle drawing noticeably different attention from base personnel than it had received. That morning. Word of the mission's success had already spread through the special operations community with the speed that characterized all significant tactical victories. The elimination of Khalil Ahmad Nazir represented more than just another high-value target removal. It demonstrated that American forces retained the capability to adapt their tactics and achieve decisive results against increasingly sophisticated enemy networks. The formal debriefing took place in a secure conference room where Lieutenant Commander Chun had assembled detailed mission analysis materials, including drone footage, intercepted communications, and preliminary intelligence assessments of the operation's broader strategic impact. The room's walls were covered with maps, photographs, and organizational charts that illustrated the complex network of relationships Nazir had maintained with insurgent groups throughout the region. "Let's start with tactical execution," Chun announced as the team settled around the conference table. The mission achieved its primary objective within acceptable risk parameters, but there are several aspects of the operation that merit detailed analysis for future planning purposes. Maria found herself at the center of much of the tactical discussion, fielding questions about equipment choices, engagement techniques, and decision-making processes that had contributed to the mission's success. Her responses demonstrated not just technical competence, but a depth of tactical understanding that had enabled her to adapt established procedures to meet specific operational requirements. The compact rifle's performance exceeded expectations, she explained to the assembled officers and senior enlisted personnel. But the weapon itself was just one component of a tactical approach that prioritized mobility and close quarters effectiveness over traditional long-range engagement capabilities. The key was recognizing that this particular target required different tactics than we might use against other high-value individuals. Colonel James Mitchell, the base commander responsible for overseeing all special operations in the region, had joined the debriefing to personally assess the tactical innovations that had made the mission successful. His presence indicated the strategic importance being placed on understanding and potentially replicating the approaches that had finally eliminated one of the most elusive enemy leaders in theater. "Staff Sergeant Vasquez," Colonel Mitchell addressed her directly, "your tactical analysis proved accurate under extremely challenging conditions. Walk us through the decision-making process that led you to conclude that close quarters engagement was necessary rather than attempting another long-range approach." Maria's response drew on months of intelligence analysis and tactical planning that had preceded the actual mission execution. Previous attempts to eliminate Nazir had all relied on conventional sniper tactics, long-range precision shots from concealed positions at distances exceeding 800 meters. His security teams had learned to anticipate and counter these approaches through electronic countermeasures, route variations, and aggressive counter-sniper tactics. She continued her analysis while pointing to relevant sections of the mission map displayed on the conference room's main screen. The valley terrain offered excellent long-range fields of fire, but it also provided predictable positions where enemy forces expected sniper teams to establish themselves. By accepting the increased risk of closer engagement, we gained the element of surprise and avoided the defensive measures his security teams had prepared for long-range threats. Morrison contributed his perspective as the team's designated precision shooter, acknowledging how the mission had challenged his own tactical assumptions. I initially questioned the compact rifle choice because my training emphasized maximum range and precision as primary considerations. But observing Staff Sergeant Vasquez's performance demonstrated that tactical flexibility and equipment adaptability can be more important than raw technical specifications. The discussion expanded to include broader implications for special operations training and equipment procurement. If compact weapon systems could provide decisive advantages under specific conditions, training programs needed to address when and how to employ alternative approaches rather than relying exclusively on standardized tactics. Chief Webb provided the team leader's assessment of overall mission execution, highlighting how individual tactical innovations had contributed to collective success. The entire team adapted their procedures to support Staff Sergeant Vasquez's approach, demonstrating the kind of tactical flexibility that characterizes truly elite units. Success required everyone to think beyond their normal operational parameters. Colonel Mitchell made notes throughout the discussion, clearly recognizing that the tactical lessons emerging from this debriefing had implications extending far beyond a single successful mission. The ability to eliminate high-value targets who had learned to counter conventional approaches represented a critical capability that could prove decisive in future operations. "I want detailed after-action reports from all team members," Mitchell announced. "These tactical innovations need to be documented and analyzed for potential application in other operational contexts. We may be looking at fundamental changes in how we approach certain types of targets." The intelligence briefing that followed revealed the broader strategic impact of Nazir's elimination. His death had already triggered significant disruptions within insurgent networks, with multiple cells losing coordination capabilities and several planned attacks being postponed or canceled due to leadership confusion. Park presented intercepted communications that demonstrated the psychological impact of the successful operation. Enemy forces are expressing surprise and concern about American tactical capabilities. Several intercepts specifically mention uncertainty about how Nazir was eliminated, despite his security precautions. The psychological warfare aspect of the mission's success was almost as important as the immediate tactical victory. Enemy leaders who believed they understood American operational patterns were now questioning their assumptions, potentially making them more cautious and less effective in their own planning processes. As the formal debriefing concluded, Maria realized that the morning's events had implications extending far beyond personal validation or tactical success. The mission had demonstrated that military effectiveness required not just individual competence, but the intellectual courage to challenge established procedures when operational conditions demanded different approaches. 3 weeks after the successful elimination of Khalil Ahmad Nazir, the tactical innovations demonstrated during that mission had already begun influencing special operations training programs and equipment procurement decisions throughout the theater. Maria found herself serving as an instructor at the Joint Special Operations Training Center, sharing her tactical insights with operators from multiple services who were eager to understand how unconventional approaches could provide decisive advantages against adaptive enemy forces. The training facility's firing range had been modified to include close-quarters combat scenarios that replicated the terrain and engagement conditions where compact weapon systems provided optimal performance. Students worked through complex exercises that emphasized tactical mobility and rapid position changes, rather than the static precision shooting that had traditionally dominated sniper training programs. The key principle, Maria explained to a class of experienced operators, is matching your equipment and tactics to the specific requirements of each mission. rather than defaulting to standardized approaches that might not be optimal for every situation. This doesn't mean abandoning proven techniques. It means understanding when alternative methods might be more effective. Among her students were several Navy SEALs who had initially been skeptical of the tactical concepts she was teaching. However, their attitudes had shifted significantly after witnessing the documented results of the Nazir operation and participating in training exercises that demonstrated the practical advantages of equipment flexibility and tactical adaptation. Petty Officer Morrison had become one of her most enthusiastic advocates, using his credibility within the sniper community to promote understanding of when compact weapon systems might be preferable to traditional long-range rifles. His transformation from skeptic to supporter had been particularly influential because other operators respected his technical expertise and combat experience. I spent years believing that maximum range and precision were always preferable, Morrison admitted during one training session. But watching Staff Sergeant Vasquez work taught me that tactical effectiveness depends on matching capabilities to requirements, not just maximizing technical specifications. The training program had attracted attention from senior leadership throughout Special Operations Command, with several general officers visiting to observe the new tactical approaches being developed. Their interest reflected recognition that enemy forces were constantly adapting their defensive measures, requiring American forces to maintain tactical flexibility and innovation to preserve operational advantages. Colonel Mitchell had become a strong advocate for expanding the program, arguing that tactical innovation represented a critical capability for maintaining effectiveness against increasingly sophisticated enemy networks. His support had been instrumental in securing resources and institutional backing for approaches that challenged established doctrinal principles. Traditional training emphasized standardization and consistency, Mitchell explained during a command briefing. But modern operations require adaptability and innovation. Staff Sergeant Vasquez's success demonstrates that tactical flexibility can be more important than technical perfection when conditions demand unconventional approaches. The broader strategic impact of Nazir's elimination continued to unfold as intelligence analysts tracked the ongoing disruption within insurgent networks. His death had created a leadership vacuum that competing factions were still fighting to fill, with the resulting chaos significantly degrading enemy operational capabilities throughout the region. Intelligence reports indicated that several planned attacks had been canceled or postponed due to communication breakdowns and leadership disputes within the affected insurgent cells. The psychological impact of Nazir's elimination had proven almost as important as the immediate tactical victory, with enemy leaders becoming more cautious and less aggressive in their operational planning. Park, who had been promoted to senior intelligence analyst based partly on her performance during the Nazir mission, provided regular updates on the operation's continuing strategic effects. We're seeing sustained disruption within enemy networks 3 weeks after the elimination. This suggests that Nazir's organizational role was even more critical than our initial assessments indicated. The intelligence analysis had revealed that Nazir had been serving as a crucial coordinator between different insurgent groups, facilitating cooperation and resource sharing that had significantly enhanced their collective effectiveness. His removal had severed these connections, forcing individual cells to operate in isolation with reduced capabilities and coordination. Maria's role as an instructor had expanded beyond technical training to include strategic education about recognizing when conventional approaches might be insufficient and developing alternative tactical solutions. Her students learned to analyze mission requirements independently rather than simply applying standardized procedures regardless of specific operational conditions. The success of the compact rifle approach had also influenced equipment procurement decisions, with special operations units requesting access to a broader range of weapon systems that could be selected based on mission-specific requirements. rather than maintaining uniform equipment configurations for all operators. During one particularly intensive training exercise, Maria worked with a team of Marine Force reconnaissance operators who were preparing for urban combat missions in densely populated areas where traditional sniper tactics would be inappropriate. The exercise scenarios replicated many of the tactical challenges she had faced during the Nazir operation. Urban environments often require engaging targets at ranges between 100 to 400 meters while maintaining mobility and avoiding civilian casualties, she explained while demonstrating movement techniques. Through simulated building complexes, compact weapon systems provide optimal performance under these conditions because they prioritize maneuverability and rapid target acquisition over maximum range capabilities. The Marine operators quickly grasped the tactical principles and began incorporating them into their own mission planning procedures. Their enthusiasm demonstrated how tactical innovations could spread rapidly through the special operations community when they provided clear operational advantages and were backed by documented success. Master Chief, Petty Officer David Reynolds, the senior enlisted advisor for all Navy Special Operations training programs, had been monitoring the expanded curriculum with particular interest. His assessment would be crucial for determining whether these tactical approaches would be formally incorporated into standard training protocols or remain specialized techniques for specific operational contexts. What we're seeing here represents a fundamental shift in how we think about tactical adaptability, Reynolds observed during a training evaluation session. Staff Sergeant Vasquez hasn't just demonstrated effective shooting techniques, she's shown us how to think more flexibly about matching capabilities to requirements. 6 months after the elimination of Khalil Ahmad Nazir, the tactical principles demonstrated during that operation had been formally incorporated into special operations training curricula across multiple service branches. Maria had been promoted to Sergeant First Class and assigned to the Special Operations Training Development Center, where she was leading a comprehensive review of small unit tactics and equipment procurement procedures. The conference room at Fort Bragg was filled with senior officers and enlisted personnel from across the special operations community, all gathered to evaluate the long-term impact of tactical innovations that had emerged from real-world combat experience. On the walls, detailed charts tracked mission success rates, casualty statistics, and operational effectiveness metrics that demonstrated measurable improvements in unit performance. "The data is compelling," announced Brigadier General Patricia Williams, the commanding officer responsible for all special operations training programs. Units that have incorporated flexible equipment selection and adaptive tactical approaches are showing significantly higher mission success rates and lower casualty figures compared to those using standardized procedures. The statistical analysis represented vindication for Maria's conviction that tactical effectiveness required matching methods to specific operational requirements rather than adhering rigidly to established doctrinal approaches. Her success against Nazir had provided the initial proof of concept, but 6 months of additional operations had generated the comprehensive data necessary to support institutional change. Colonel Mitchell, who had been promoted to oversight responsibility for all regional special operations, provided context about the broader strategic implications of these tactical developments. Enemy forces are constantly adapting their defensive measures to counter our established operational patterns. Maintaining tactical flexibility allows us to stay ahead of their adaptation cycles and preserve operational advantages. The ongoing cat-and-mouse game between American forces and insurgent networks highlighted why tactical innovation was so strategically important. Enemy leaders learned from each engagement, modifying their security procedures and defensive tactics to counter the approaches that had previously been successful against them. Maria's presentation to the assembled leadership focused on the systematic approach she had developed for analyzing mission requirements and selecting optimal equipment. configurations. Her methodology had evolved from the intuitive tactical thinking that had made the Nazir operation successful into a structured framework that could be taught to other operators. The decision matrix considers multiple factors, she explained, while pointing to detailed flowcharts displayed on the main briefing screen. Target characteristics, terrain features, expected enemy countermeasures, extraction requirements, and acceptable risk levels all influence the optimal tactical approach for each specific mission. The systematic framework represented a significant advancement over previous training methods that had emphasized memorizing standardized procedures for different operational scenarios. Instead of teaching operators what to do in specific situations, the new approach taught them how to think through tactical problems and develop customized solutions. Morrison, who had become one of the program's most experienced instructors, demonstrated how the principles applied to actual mission planning. "We're not abandoning proven techniques," he emphasized. "We're teaching operators when and why to use different approaches based on operational requirements rather than default assumptions." The training revolution had attracted international attention, with allied special operations units sending personnel to observe and learn from the American tactical innovations. Representatives from British SAS, Australian SASRA, and Canadian JTF-2 had all participated in exchange programs designed to share tactical knowledge and improve collective operational effectiveness. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Henderson from the British Special Air Service provided an international perspective on the training developments. "What's particularly impressive is how quickly these tactical innovations have been systematized and integrated into formal training programs. The ability to rapidly incorporate battlefield lessons into institutional knowledge represents a significant organizational advantage." The rapid institutionalization of tactical lessons had been enabled by strong leadership support and the documented success of operations that employed the new approaches. Rather than waiting years for formal doctrinal reviews, Special Operations Commands had moved quickly to implement training changes that were showing immediate operational benefits. Master Chief Reynolds provided the senior enlisted perspective on how the tactical changes were affecting operator development and career progression. "We're seeing increased intellectual engagement from students who are learning to think through tactical problems rather than just memorizing procedures. The quality of tactical analysis and mission planning has improved significantly." The enhanced intellectual engagement represented one of the most important long-term benefits of the training changes. Operators who learned to analyze tactical problems independently were better prepared to adapt to unexpected situations and develop innovative solutions when established procedures proved insufficient. Park, who had been assigned to the intelligence analysis section supporting the train development effort, presented data showing how the tactical innovations were affecting broader strategic outcomes. "We're tracking decreased enemy effectiveness in multiple operational areas where units have implemented flexible tactical approaches. The ability to maintain tactical unpredictability appears to be providing sustained operational advantages." The strategic analysis confirmed that tactical innovation wasn't just improving individual mission success rates, it was contributing to broader campaign effectiveness by preventing enemy forces from developing effective countermeasures against American operational patterns. As the briefing concluded, General Williams announced her decision to expand the program significantly, with plans to train additional instructor cadres and establish regional training centers that could support units throughout the global special operations community. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, the General addressed Maria directly. "Your tactical insights and training innovations have contributed to measurable improvements in operational effectiveness across multiple theaters. I'm authorizing expansion of this program with you as the Senior Technical Advisor responsible for curriculum development and instructor training." The appointment represented recognition that tactical innovation required ongoing institutional support rather than relying on individual initiative alone. By formalizing the process of analyzing tactical problems and developing adaptive solutions, the Special Operations community was positioning itself to maintain operational advantages against constantly evolving enemy threats. Maria accepted the assignment with understanding of its broader significance. The skepticism she had faced about her compact rifle and unconventional tactical approaches had transformed into institutional recognition that adaptability and innovation were critical capabilities for maintaining military effectiveness in an environment where enemy forces were constantly learning and adapting their own defensive measures. 3 years after the successful elimination of Khalil Ahmad Nazir, Maria found herself in an unexpected position, serving as the lead consultant for a Hollywood production company that was developing an action film inspired by her story. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same compact rifle that had been ridiculed by elite operators was now being featured as the hero weapon in a major motion picture titled Close Range. The film's director, Marcus Chun, had spent months researching the actual events to ensure tactical authenticity in the movie's combat sequences. Unlike typical Hollywood productions that prioritize dramatic effect over realism, Chun was committed to accurately portraying the tactical thinking and professional expertise that had made the real operation successful. "What strikes me most about your story," Chun explained during their first meeting at the production studio in Los Angeles, "is how it demonstrates that innovation often comes from questioning established assumptions rather than accepting conventional wisdom. That's a universal theme that resonates far beyond military contexts." Maria's role as technical advisor required her to review every aspect of the film's tactical content, from weapon handling techniques to team communication procedures. The experience gave her a unique perspective on how military stories were translated for civilian audiences, and the responsibility of ensuring that heroic portrayals remained grounded in realistic, professional behavior. The lead actress portraying Maria was Academy Award winner Sarah Martinez, whose previous films had established her as one of Hollywood's most versatile performers. Martinez had spent weeks training with actual military instructors to develop the physical skills and tactical awareness necessary to convincingly portray a special operations soldier. "Learning to handle the compact rifle system has been fascinating," Martinez explained during a break between filming sessions. The weapons training instructors kept emphasizing how the shorter barrel and lighter weight actually provide advantages in certain tactical situations. "It's completely changed my understanding of what makes weapons effective." The actress's training experience reflected the same learning curve that many military professionals had undergone when first exposed to Maria's tactical innovations. Initial skepticism gave way to appreciation once people understood the specific operational advantages that compact systems could provide under appropriate conditions. Morrison, who had been promoted to Master Chief Petty Officer, visited the film set to observe how his own character was being portrayed. The actor playing Morrison had studied video footage of the actual debriefing sessions to capture the transformation from skepticism to respect that had characterized his real-world experience. "It's surreal seeing someone else portray the moment when I realized how wrong my initial assumptions had been," Morrison admitted while watching dailies from the day's filming. But the actor captured something important: the professional humility required to acknowledge when your expertise needs to evolve based on new evidence. The film's tactical consultant was retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Rodriguez, who had served alongside Maria during several subsequent operations that employed her adaptive tactical approaches. His presence ensured that the movie's combat sequences reflected not just the original Nazir mission, but the broader tactical evolution that had followed. Hollywood typically portrays military operations as individual heroics rather than team coordination, Rodriguez explained while reviewing storyboard sequences. This film is different because it shows how tactical innovation emerges from professional expertise and systematic thinking, rather than just personal courage or natural talent. The movie's production had attracted attention from defense industry, companies interested in product placement opportunities, but Maria had insisted on maintaining editorial control over any equipment depictions. She was determined that the film wouldn't become a marketing vehicle that misrepresented the tactical principles that had made her approach successful. The compact rifle manufacturer had offered substantial financial incentives for prominent product placement, but Maria declined because she felt it would compromise the story's focus on tactical thinking rather than specific equipment brands. Her decision reflected the same professional integrity that had characterized her military career. During the film's climactic battle sequence, Maria worked directly with the cinematographer to ensure that camera angles and editing techniques accurately portrayed the tactical advantages that compact weapons provided in close-quarters combat situations. The visual storytelling needed to convey technical concepts that civilian audiences might not immediately understand. The key is showing how the shorter weapon allows faster target transitions and better maneuverability in confined spaces, Maria explained while reviewing footage from the day's shooting. Audiences need to see why this approach was tactically superior for this specific mission, rather than just thinking it looks different. The film's sound design also required careful attention to tactical authenticity. The distinctive acoustic signature of the compact rifle's report needed to be accurately reproduced, along with the ambient sounds of combat that would have been present during the actual operation. Behind the scenes, footage showed Maria demonstrating proper firing techniques and tactical movement procedures that the actors needed to replicate convincingly. Her instruction went beyond basic weapons handling to include the systematic decision-making processes that had enabled her to recognize when conventional approaches would be insufficient. The movie's technical accuracy extended to details like RADIO communication protocols, medical equipment, and even the specific terrain features of the Afghan valley where the operation had taken place. Production designers had used satellite imagery and military consultation to recreate the actual geographical conditions. As filming neared completion, early test screenings with military audiences provided positive feedback about the movie's tactical authenticity and respectful portrayal of special operations professionalism. Veterans appreciated that the film avoided common Hollywood cliches while still delivering the dramatic impact that general audiences expected. The movie's release was scheduled to coincide with a broader public awareness campaign about military innovation and the importance of supporting veterans' transition to civilian careers. Maria had agreed to participate in promotional activities that highlighted these themes rather than simply marketing the entertainment value. This film represents an opportunity to educate civilian audiences about military professionalism, the intellectual challenges that modern warfare presents, Maria explained during an interview with Military Times magazine. If it helps people understand that military effectiveness depends on thinking as much as training, then participating in the project will have been worthwhile. The Hollywood premiere of Close Range took place at the TCL Chinese Theater, with Maria walking the red carpet alongside the film's stars and production team. The event drew significant media attention, not just for the movie's entertainment value, but for its unprecedented commitment to tactical authenticity in portraying special operations. Military Times, Stars and Stripes, and several civilian publications had already published positive reviews highlighting how the film avoided typical Hollywood stereotypes while delivering compelling dramatic content. The consensus among critics was that Close Range had set new standards for realistic military storytelling in commercial cinema. Maria's appearance at the premiere generated substantial media interest, with reporters eager to interview the real-world soldier whose tactical innovations had inspired the film. Her approach to these interviews reflected the same professional demeanor that had characterized her military career, focused on substance rather than personal publicity. The movie gets the tactical details right, but more importantly, it captures the intellectual process that goes into solving complex operational problems. Maria explained during a red carpet interview with Entertainment Tonight. Military effectiveness isn't about individual heroics. It's about professional expertise, applied systematically to specific challenges. The film's box office performance exceeded studio expectations, earning over $150 million worldwide during its theatrical run. More significantly for Maria, the movie's success generated renewed interest in military innovation and tactical development programs within both military and civilian educational institutions. Several major universities contacted Maria about establishing guest lecture series that would bring her tactical innovation methodologies to business schools and engineering programs. The systematic approach to problem solving that had proven effective in military contexts appeared to have broader applications in civilian professional development. Stanford Graduate School of Business invited Maria to participate in their leadership development program, where her decision-making frameworks were adapted for corporate strategic planning applications. The same analytical methods that had enabled her to recognize when conventional military tactics would be insufficient proved valuable for business leaders facing competitive challenges. The principles are surprisingly transferable, explained Professor Jennifer Walsh from Stanford's Management Science Department. Maria's systematic approach to analyzing operational requirements and developing customized solutions applies to any situation where established procedures may not be optimal for specific conditions. The business school applications represented an unexpected extension of Maria's tactical innovations beyond their original military context. Corporate executives attending her presentations were particularly interested in the decision-making methodologies that enabled recognition of when conventional approaches needed modification. Meanwhile, the Department of Defense had established a formal program to identify and develop additional tactical innovations based on the framework Maria had pioneered. The Tactical Innovation Development Office, headquartered at Fort Leavenworth, was tasked with systematically analyzing the emerging operational challenges and developing adaptive solutions. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the office's director, had worked directly with Maria to establish evaluation criteria and development processes that could identify promising tactical concepts while avoiding the institutional resistance that initially hindered acceptance of unconventional approaches. Master Sergeant Vasquez's experience demonstrated that breakthrough tactical concepts often emerge from field operators who understand specific operational challenges better than institutional planners. Mitchell explained during a Defense Department briefing, "Our job is to create systematic processes for identifying and developing these insights before they're needed in combat." The formal innovation program included exchange partnerships with allied military organizations, ensuring that tactical development remained collaborative rather than isolated within American military institutions. Maria's international recognition had provided credibility for these cooperative efforts. The success of Close Range had also generated interest from military recruiting commands, who recognized that the film's positive portrayal of military professionalism could help attract high-quality candidates to special operations careers. Maria participated in recruiting events where her story demonstrated that military service offered opportunities for intellectual challenge and professional growth. Young people today are looking for careers that provide both personal fulfillment and opportunities to make meaningful contributions to important causes, explained Colonel Robert Hayes from Army Recruiting Command. Maria's story shows that military service can provide exactly those opportunities for individuals who want to combine intellectual challenge with service to their country. The recruiting applications had been carefully managed to avoid compromising Operational security, while highlighting the professional opportunities available in special operations careers. Maria's involvement emphasized the educational and leadership development aspects of military service rather than focusing exclusively on combat operations. Educational institutions had also begun incorporating Maria's tactical decision-making methodologies into their curricula. The Air Force Academy, West Point, and the Naval Academy all established courses that used her systematic approach to analyzing complex problems and developing innovative solutions. The Military Academy applications ensured that future officers would be exposed to adaptive thinking methodologies from the beginning of their careers rather than having to overcome institutional resistance to innovation later in their professional development. As the film's cultural impact continued to expand, Maria found herself balancing her ongoing military responsibilities with increasing requests for civilian speaking engagements and consulting opportunities. The challenge was maintaining focus on substantive professional development rather than becoming distracted by celebrity status. Her approach to managing this balance reflected the same systematic thinking that had characterized her tactical innovations. She established clear criteria for evaluating opportunities based on their potential contribution to military effectiveness and professional education rather than publicity value or financial compensation. The most satisfying development was correspondence from young women who had been inspired by the film to pursue military careers in special operations fields that had traditionally been male-dominated. Maria's story had demonstrated that professional competence and tactical innovation were more important than conforming to established stereotypes about military roles. If this story encouraged even a few young people to consider military careers where they can contribute their intelligence and creativity to important missions, then all the attention will have been worthwhile. Maria reflected during an interview with Military Review magazine. Military effectiveness depends on attracting the best minds to the most challenging problems. 10 years after Navy SEALs had laughed at her compact rifle, Command Sergeant Major Maria Vasquez stood before the graduating class at the United States Military Academy at West Point, delivering the commencement address to future officers who would lead American forces in conflicts not yet imagined. Her journey from skepticism to institutional transformation had become a case study in military leadership courses worldwide. The cadets listening to her speech represented a new generation of military leaders who had been educated from the beginning of their careers about the importance of tactical flexibility and adaptive thinking. Unlike previous generations who had to overcome institutional resistance to innovation, these officers would enter service expecting to analyze problems systematically and develop customized solutions. Leadership in the modern military requires intellectual courage, Maria told the assembled graduates and their families. You must be willing to question established procedures when operational conditions demand new approaches, while maintaining the discipline and coordination that effective military action requires. Her speech drew on a decade of experience watching tactical innovations spread throughout the military, transforming not just special operations, but conventional forces across all service branches. The principles that had emerged from one unconventional weapon choice had evolved into comprehensive frameworks for military problem solving. The graduating class included several cadets who had specifically requested assignment to units that employed adaptive tactical methodologies. These young officers represented the institutionalization of approaches that had once been considered radical departures from established military doctrine. In the audience sat many of the individuals who had been part of Maria's original journey. Morrison, now a Command Master Chief, had brought his teenage daughter to witness the ceremony. His presence represented the personal transformation that had paralleled the institutional changes in military thinking. Watching Master Sergeant, now Command Sergeant Major, Vasquez receive this recognition brings the whole story full circle. Morrison explained to his daughter, She taught all of us that being a professional means being willing to admit when your assumptions might be wrong, and learning from evidence rather than defending positions. The West Point address was being broadcast live to military installations worldwide, ensuring that Maria's message reached service members who were currently facing the same kinds of tactical challenges that had originally led to her innovations. The global audience reflected the international impact of American tactical development. General Patricia Williams, now retired but serving as a military consultant, provided opening remarks that placed Maria's contributions in historical context. Throughout military history, tactical breakthroughs have typically emerged from practitioners who understood specific operational challenges better than institutional planners. Command Sergeant Maria Vasquez represents this tradition at its finest. The ceremony included presentation of the MacArthur Leadership Award, recognizing Maria's contributions to military innovation and professional education. The award citation specifically acknowledged her role in demonstrating that individual tactical insights could have strategic implications when properly developed and institutionally supported. As Maria accepted the award, she reflected on the unexpected trajectory that had brought her from facing ridicule about a toy gun to receiving the military's highest recognition for leadership excellence, the compact rifle that had started. Everything was now displayed in the Smithsonian Institution as part of an exhibit on military innovation. Military effectiveness has always depended on the willingness to adapt established methods when operational conditions change, she told the graduating class. Your generation will face challenges that we can't yet imagine, and your success will depend on combining professional competence with intellectual flexibility. The speech concluded with specific guidance for young officers about balancing innovation with institutional responsibility. Maria emphasized that tactical flexibility required systematic thinking rather than abandoning proven procedures arbitrarily. Following the ceremony, Maria participated in a roundtable discussion with faculty from West Point's Department of Military Instruction, sharing insights about how tactical innovation could be systematically encouraged within military educational institutions. The key is teaching analytical frameworks rather than specific solutions, she explained to the academic audience. Students need to learn how to think through tactical problems systematically so they can develop appropriate responses to situations that weren't covered in their formal training. The educational discussion was being recorded for distribution to military academies and training institutions worldwide, ensuring that Maria's pedagogical insights would influence military education far beyond West Point's specific programs. Later that evening, at the traditional post-ceremony reception, Maria was approached by a young second lieutenant who had graduated at the top of her class. The officer's questions reflected the intellectual curiosity and systematic thinking that characterized the new generation of military leaders. "Ma'am, your decision-making methodology has been incorporated into our tactical training, but I'm curious about how you initially recognized that conventional approaches might be insufficient for the Nazir mission," the lieutenant asked. Maria's response drew on years of reflection about the cognitive processes that had enabled her to challenge established assumptions. The key was systematic analysis of previous failed attempts rather than assuming that standard procedures would eventually succeed. When evidence contradicts expectations, professional integrity requires adapting methods rather than defending approaches that aren't working. The conversation with the young officer represented the successful transfer of tactical wisdom to a new generation of military professionals. These leaders would face their own unique challenges, but they had been equipped with analytical tools that could help them develop innovative solutions. As the evening concluded, Maria looked out over the Hudson River from West Point's historic grounds. Considering how far military thinking had evolved since that morning in Afghanistan when her compact rifle had been dismissed as inadequate. The weapon had been retired, but the principles it had demonstrated continued to influence military operations worldwide. The transformation from skepticism to institutional recognition represented more than personal vindication. It demonstrated that military organizations could maintain effectiveness against adaptive enemies by encouraging systematic innovation rather than rigid adherence to established procedures. Her final reflection captured the essence of what had made the journey meaningful. Innovation isn't about being different. It's about being effective when effectiveness requires new approaches. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.